Hi, and welcome back to our scene-by-scene analysis of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at Act 1, Scene 2. It's a short scene, but there's some pretty important information. It picks up right in the middle of a conversation, and we get to meet a new character.
County Paris. Now here's my big question about him. Is he creepy?
I played Paris in Romeo and Juliet, so
right,
I'm going
so
to have to
that's why
say
the question
no.
That's why I asked the question.
Oh, okay. I say no, but I think that's for other characters to decide. Probably Juliet.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about County Paris.
Well, we're introduced to him. We're not really given an explicit age, but we are led to believe that he's a great deal older than either titular character, but especially Juliet, because he is seeking her hand in marriage. Mm-hmm. Why I ask, is he creepy? One, we learn that Juliet is not even 14.
Yeah, he's creepy. We can end it there.
Okay,
creepy.
Great. Perfect.
Especially by modern standards.
Yes, absolutely.
Within the confines of Shakespeare's time period, but creepy. Creepy still.
Even then, because the language that, like, he and then Lord Capulet are using, it's not like he's super familiar with Juliet yet either. So not only is he seeking to wed a child, he's seeking to wed a child that he doesn't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Yeah, it's a political marriage for sure.
Money, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting in the adaptation of the poem that Romeo and Juliet is based off of, Shakespeare changes Juliet's age from 16 to 13. In the original poem, it's more of a cautionary tale of why you should listen to your parents, but making her 13 makes it a little more understandable why she would fall head over heels for someone that she just met. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, so let's talk about this conversation. So Paris talks to Capulet, and what I find very interesting about this conversation is that we have a reminder that the Montagues and the Capulets are on even footing. Mm-hmm. In fact, it seems that Capulet doesn't even want to fight the Montagues. He says, Montague is bound as well as I in penalty alike, and 'tis not hard, I think, for men so old as we to keep the peace. So they seem determined to, be on decent footing, not speak to each other, but it's not like they're bloodthirsty enemies at all time, at least from Capulet's point of view. Later on, we'll see what some of the younger members of the family think about each other. But something to keep in mind. And then we get Paris's conversation. So Paris is there to ask for Capulet's hand.
No. Ask for Juliet's hand.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ask Capulet for Juliet's hand. Yeah, that'd be a different play. Yeah. But ask for Juliet's hand for marriage with Capulet. I forget which one, you're asking all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about Paris's conversation. What stood out to you?
Oh, well, what stood out to me, there are a few things. So already, I think it's established, I think that Paris is a little creepy. I'm going to put a pin in that. But what I think is super unique about their exchange is for this time period, for political or monetary marriages made for power and not love, Capulet's reaction is not what you would expect for this kind of scenario.
Yeah.
He's being very polite. He's letting Paris know that he likes him, but he's the one that says, my daughter's not even 14. Mm-hmm. He says, you should wait 2 years, which is closer to the age of the original poem. Mm-hmm. And then they talk more, and Paris says something very, very creepy. Let's see if I can find the actual...
younger than her our happy mother's maid.
Yep. So after Capulet says, she's a child. She is a child. Younger than she our happy mother's maid, and then Capulet finishes that lovely rhyme, kind of, same word, and too soon marred are those so early made. Mm-hmm. So, which is interesting because then later you're like, oh, when did he and Lady Capulet marry? When did this happen? Is he speaking from experience, from what he's seen? But he's a powerful man. He knows how to have these kinds of conversations because he's like, hey, there's a party tonight. you should come.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You are my number one pick for Juliet. However, there's going to be so many beautiful women there. Who knows? Maybe you'll fall in love. Maybe you'll forget completely about my daughter. Who knows?
It's a great point you make. The actor and director would have to decide, why does Capulet say that young marriages are bad? And what is his motivation for inviting Paris? Is he testing Paris, or is he trying to definitely throw Paris off of the family or throw him out of the family before he even enters it?
Right.
So, yeah, excellent. After that, they send a servant out to find the guests for the party, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, because we have 2 new characters enter the scene.
All right, so your emo boy has returned, but he's got a wingman now, and that wingman is still going hard post-fight, being like, hey, forget this Rosalind girl. There are lots of other women. You're being sad. You're being boring. You're making my life very difficult. Please move on.
If you didn't see the last video, emo boy is Romeo's name in our series.
Okay, but it's very accurate.
It is accurate.
So.
It is accurate. Just in case anyone hadn't seen that, they might be confused. So, yeah, Romeo and Benvolio enter the street, or however the director sets up where this scene is taking place, and runs into the servant, who in a lot of productions is played by Peter. That's doubled up, but doesn't have to be. So if we slip up and call him Peter, that's why. But it could be a she as well. So the servant runs into them. You get some great humor of the servant looking for someone who knows how to read. There's a funny exchange with Romeo there. And then Romeo reads the letter and notices some interesting people are going to be attending the party. By interesting, I mean Rosaline, who of course Romeo has been fawning over as an emo boy.
You gotta say it right.
Emo boy, sorry, my apologies to Shakespeare and everyone. Everyone watching, my apologies. And then the scene wraps up with Romeo agreeing to go to the party, even if it's begrudgingly.
Fair.
So one of the things we do in these videos is we like to mention 3 things in every video. The 3 things are our favorite thing about the scene, a challenge about the scene, whether it be reading or acting or directing it, and finally what you need to know before you get on to the next scene. So it's like the essential knowledge, or at least something very useful for you to better understand the rest of the play. So you want to go first with your favorite thing?
Well, my favorite thing, oh, there's a lot, but one of my favorite things has to be the really interesting parallel that you get between Capulet's lines to Paris regarding the party, and then Benvolio's last line to Romeo, also regarding the party. You have Capulet basically saying, hold on, it's a little bit of a hefty one. So if we look around line 30, among fresh fennel buds shall you this night inherit my house. Here all see, and like her most whose merit most shall be, which, well, on more view of many mine, being one, may stand in number, though reckoning none. So he's basically saying, come to my party, have a good time. You're going to see lots of wonderful women, and the best one for you is going to definitely maybe not be Juliet, you'll forget her, but don't worry about it, don't worry. And we end the scene after they are, through beautiful plot devices, Benvolio and Romeo end up going to that party. And we have, now, a little secret. So I played Benvolio in the same production as he did, and this is the line that gave me the most trouble, because I think it's a bit of a tongue twister, although it is a great parallel, again, to Capulet. So, Tut, you saw her fair, none else standing by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in that crystal scales, let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid that I will show you shining at this feast. Again, the party, you're going to see another beautiful woman, but this one, and she shall scant show well that now seems best.
That is a tongue twister for sure.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But I think it's very interesting because you have these dueling families, you have differing reasons for why you might want this suitor, who, interestingly enough, they end up being rivals, to look elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is some wonderful humor and also just a clever bookend.
Yeah.
It's almost like Shakespeare's reminding the audience about a plot device because they hear it again, although this time through different characters. One of my favorite things about the scene also is a bit of a plot device and making things happen. So you have this problem of how do you get Romeo and Benvolio to even find out about a party? So how does Shakespeare solve this? The servant, and I quote, after mentioning what various occupations do, says, "I am sent to find those persons whose names are here writ, and can never find what names the writing person hath here writ. I must to the learned in good time." So the servant is given a letter, says, find these people who are listed on the letter, and the servant tells the audience, I don't know how to read, so I'm going to have to go find someone who knows how to read so that I can find the people in the letter. And because he's looking for people who know how to read, he runs into Romeo. Romeo is of a higher class, and you'd be able to tell that just by his costume, what he's wearing. And so he asks Romeo, and then they find out about the letter, and of course, with Rosaline going to the party, Romeo is now motivated to go as well. Absolutely. So, what is the challenge of this scene besides tongue twisters and difficult names to say?
I think it's almost every one of Capulet's lines.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one, like, he's giving you almost all of the exposition. He's telling you all about Juliet, who we have yet to hear any lines from, even though she is a third of the title. And then he's telling you about the relationship between Paris and everyone else, this party that we are going to have almost all of our major characters at. Mm-hmm. You got to understand that, but then he's giving you so much subtext, because he's not just telling you what's going to happen, he's going to tell you jovially, but he's still going to tell you how he feels about it. So you learn that, all right, the patriarchs of these families don't super care about this feud. Mm-hmm. They don't like each other, but they're not wanting to kill each other. You learn how he feels about his daughter. He's protective. You don't necessarily learn why, but you learn that he's a little wary of Paris marrying her. You learn that he's excited to throw a party, consume things, and it's in the lines.
It is in the lines, that's true.
But it's a lot, and he kind of speaks in circles, so he definitely has lines that you'd have to read more than once to really comprehend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Capulet is, I think, a character that a lot of people forget about unless they see a good production.
Yeah.
And really is a phenomenal character with an incredible character arc. So keep your eye on Capulet. Incredible being momentous. Not necessarily wonderful in terms of what happens. I'm going to go back to the letter, actually, because I remember the first time I ever read this play, the letter really threw me, because there's so many names. They're very old Italian names, which you might not be familiar with, and you might wonder who's important and who's not, especially because we just met a new character in Paris. So Paris, obviously, pretty important character. Are some of these other characters important? Well, no offense to them, but really at this point, no. Mercutio is listed and he'll become incredibly significant, but you'll pick up on that as you continue to read or watch. And then Rosaline is there, but we'll notice when we get to the party that
Romeo gets distracted.
Yeah, Romeo gets distracted.
He's a fickle boy.
So really it's just, I think, partly for the sake of realism, that there would be a lot of people listed. You also have Tybalt listed, who will become significant as well. We saw Tybalt in the last scene, so you know who he is. But otherwise, a lot of the names you don't have to worry about too much. And if you're watching a really good production, the actors playing Benvolio and Romeo will react accordingly and cue you into what names are significant to them. But the party scene's a phenomenal scene, sticks out in a lot of people's minds. So, yeah, don't get too tripped up on all the names. Absolutely. Okay, so we covered our favorite thing.
Yep.
We covered something you might be challenged by as you read or performing it for the first time. And our final thing we like to talk about is, what do you need to know? So you want to go first again?
Okay, so you need to know this to get to the next scene. There's a party tonight. There are a lot of people invited. Namely, we have Juliet's going to be there, Romeo's going to be there, Paris is going to be there, the other Capulets are going to be there, Mercutio, Tybalt, all these people are going to be there. But really important, no Montagues are allowed. Also important, Benvolio and Romeo are Montagues.
Mm-hmm.
Also important, it's a masquerade.
Yes. Yeah. Another wonderful plot device by William Shakespeare to make all this craziness work. We're going to go back to Capulet. There's just two lines that I think can be easy to gloss over, not be entirely sure what they mean. The first one is, "Earth hath swallowed all my hopes but she." And scholars kind of debate what that line means. Does that mean that Juliet's an only child, or that Juliet's the only surviving child? But you can tell that Capulet really, really cares about his daughter. And that, I think, helps to explain a line a few lines down that would not necessarily be the standard response to a very rich, esteemed person coming to court your daughter at this time. Capulet says, "Within her scope of choice lies my consent and fair according voice." And it's very ambiguous, but Capulet is saying, whoever Juliet wants to marry, that's who I want her to marry. It's almost like he can't quite come out and say that, maybe because it would have been seen as weak or not very masculine at this time, but he does say it, even if it's kind of buried in metaphor there. So that's really essential that this is where Capulet's starting the play off from. This is his first big scene. He was in the previous scene with the fight, but this is where he's starting from with his relationship with Juliet.
What I think would be very helpful is when you have major characters introduced. So Capulet is one of them, to take notes on just basic attributes. So he's jovial. He likes to laugh. He apparently likes parties, and he loves his daughter. Right? And you need to know what has Paris said? Well, he wants to marry Juliet. You need to know that he's got a high status. Just like little details, because one, it helps you keep the plot straight, because this is a character plot too. But two, it's going to help you understand when there's a big shift in a character. Well, wait, in this scene they were like this. So what happened to make them like this now?
Yeah, absolutely. And if something's confusing, it's always worthwhile to read Shakespeare again and go back over the line. He doesn't have a lot of fluff in his plays. He's very particular about his words. And chances are, if something's confusing, it's probably a dirty joke. So if you want to catch those, you can go back and read it again. But you also don't need to have 100% understanding to move forward. And it just takes exposure. And these are very old words, and they're written in poetry. So yeah, just have fun with it and play around with the words like Shakespeare wants you to, I'm sure. So with that, we'll see you in the next video, and happy reading! Recording, what's it look like for you?
Pretty good.
It's recording too. Okay, recording here.
You want to give a clap?
Alright, we're both in frame. Whoopsies. Yeah. Well, at least we recorded that.